Brought to you by 1-800-Flowers.com. All right, John Clayton is there. Beautiful. Here's JC with us, the professor, on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline as we wrap up the Super Bowl and turn our attention to the offseason. There is no perceptible downtime in professional football. And, John, let's get right to it. The Philadelphia Eagles will owe Michael Vick $3 million if they don't release him by Thursday. Is there any reason to think that they won't?
No, it doesn't sound like they're going to try to renegotiate his contract, and if that's going to be the case, he'll be released. Now, that doesn't close the door for him trying to resign, but there's no way they're going to guarantee him $45.5 million over the next 3 years. You know, they still have at least a few days to reach out, but you kind of get the idea that the fact that Chip Kelly is still not in a position to make the decision on Michael Vick. He's sorting out the defensive coordinator position. He's sorting out a lot of different things on his coaching staff, and the big decision he has to make is what he's going to do at quarterback. It just doesn't seem there's enough time right now for him to be able to keep Vick under the current contract. So come later this week on Friday, it looks like he'll be released, available to anybody else, including the Philadelphia Eagles.
As far as a guy like Alex Smith, people keep saying, well, he's going to be released because he owed $6 or $7 million. I believe it's in April. Do you expect him to get traded instead of released because there'll be a couple of teams that will want him?
I think there's a better than 50% chance because when you get the idea that there's several teams in the AFC that are interested in quarterbacks, and I start with the Cleveland Browns because even though they took Brandon Wheaton last year, the they is not the current they because you have a new ownership group that's come in, new decision makers, and I don't know if the current group right now is sold on having a quarterback who's going to be in his second year at 30 years old, and so because of that, they're going to be shopping. But understand San Francisco's predicament. If they release him, there's a better than 50% chance he could end up in Arizona. They would rather have him not competing them in the same conference or in the same division. So if that's the case, you might be able to parlay some mid-round choice, whether it's going to be from Jacksonville, maybe it could be Philly, maybe it could be the New York Jets, maybe it could be Cleveland. But you get the idea that more than likely you'd rather trade him over to the AFC. That's why, the initial quarterback market may be tied up in trades. Matt Flynn, for example, could be available to a team like the Jets or Jacksonville, with the fact that there's currently a couple guys who are in the Seahawks organization who know him. So trading right now would be the first option. But after a certain point, if it doesn't work out in a trade, then it can work out in a release.
John Clayton is with us. You keep mentioning the Jets, which just strikes my curiosity. So your expectation is the Jets will go out and spend legitimate money to bring in a legitimate quarterback, despite the fact that they have all this money tied up in Sanchez.
Well, still debatable because they have to sort through the cap situation first. I don't know if they figured out at this stage what money they have or what they don't have. But, if they can work out some kind of an accommodating trade, let's say that's why I think Flynn would be more of an option than, say, Alex Smith. Alex's contract is remaining, pays him $15 million over the next 2 years. Flynn's going to make a little over 11 over the next 2 years. You can probably work out something a little bit more friendlier with those deals. And then that gives you the option if you want to try to get rid of Mark Sanchez, not in a trade, but by release. The initial feeling when John Idzik went in there is that he's probably going to keep Mark Sanchez, but I don't think the fan base is going to be happy just seeing Mark Sanchez there. They have to have somebody, whether it's through the draft, a trade, or something else, to at least go in there and try to compete against him. The only reason that Sanchez would be there this year is because of his contract, and so that's why if they can clear out enough cap room and get a friendly kind of a trade, that might be a more viable option.
Mike and Mike, the Professor John Clayton here, presented by Progressive Insurance. Quickly, Joe Flacco, to the winner goes the spoils, and the spoils will be millions and millions of dollars. He bet on himself and won. How do you envision the Flacco contract thing proceeding now?
I think at this stage, he's got to make that strong case and probably has it. He can get the 5 years, $100 million, or 6 years, $120 million. $20 million a year would seem to be the going price, figuring that Matt Ryan's going to be pretty much in the same range once he gets a deal done with Atlanta. And Flacco rolled the dice. He was probably at the $17 or $18 million mark when they were offering last year, and he kind of said, okay, fine, thank you very much, appreciate it. I'm going to concentrate on football and try to prove you that I can play in that top echelon. I don't think he could have done it any better. And so with that in mind, and knowing if they have to put the exclusive franchise tag, that's over $20.4 million. It's $20.4 million. They just can't do that. And so I think that over the next 2 or 3 weeks, they'll work out something. There may be one stage where they have to put the franchise tag on for a brief bit, but they can't afford to put $20.4 million tied up in the cap. They've got to get a long-term deal. I think it's going to be in the $20 million a year range.
It's well done. John, thank you. Get some rest. The Professor John Clayton with us on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. There is no perceptible offseason in pro football. We promised you next question here. We'll do that coming up next with Balbiz. Will come up here. We have had John ready to go there, and so wanted to get some of that in. By the way, as we were talking, I was glancing over, and our friend and colleague Merrill